All right, very good. So again, thank you all for being here today. Nice to have you with us. It is being recorded, as I mentioned before. Please keep yourselves muted. I have muted you here, so you really don't have to worry about it. I've muted you here. If for some reason you do unmute, we'd prefer that you not do that, only because it's the ambient noise behind you sometimes, whether it's a fan or traffic or a dog barking, and it can really interfere with everyone else's ability to participate here in the class today. So we ask that you keep yourselves muted. If you have a question or thought or a comment for Steve Saladino, our moderator today, please use the chat feature. I will be monitoring the chat feature throughout today's class, and I'll forward questions on to Steve. When I find that he's got a little bit of a break, I can jump in there and ask the question for you or provide comments, so on and so forth. There'll be a little bit of paperwork at the end of today's CE class, and we're going to need for you to complete that paperwork. I'm going to leave the Zoom platform open even after Steve is finished with the class, so that we can make sure you get your paperwork squared away if you have any questions or concerns about it. And it's very easy to do. It's very simple. Paula will put those instructions in the chat feature. She'll come online and chat about it just for a moment for you, so you'll be well versed and up to speed about how to do that. And so don't panic, don't worry. Even when Steve's finished, we'll keep the Zoom platform open, but make sure your questions are answered and you feel comfortable with your paperwork and so on and so forth. If you're, as I mentioned before, if you're not a member of the association, first of all, welcome. Thank you for being to this event sponsored by NAIFA Florida and the principal. Very nice to have you with us. I am the CEO of NAIFA Florida, Tom Ashley. And on behalf of our staff and board of directors and the leaders of NAIFA Florida, we welcome you as non-members. If you'd like information on membership, I'll be popping that in the chat feature as well once we get started. I'm not going to do it right now, but I'll put it in the chat feature for you. Let me very quickly introduce Steve Saladino. He's the moderator for today's class. Steve Saladino, LUTCF, RICP, LACP, is a member of NAIFA Tampa and was actually honored with NAIFA Florida's C.G. Sneed J.F. Ryan III Memorial Award for outstanding service, recognizing him as the Financial Advisor of the Year in Florida in 2019. And that's quite an honor, Steve. As you know, that is our top award here at the association. Steve currently serves as Managing Director for Principal Financial Group in Tampa, where he previously served as Development Director. As Managing Director, he's attended several Gamma International leadership meetings, including the LAMP program, LAMP meeting. He's a licensed life and health, variable annuity, and property casualty agent. In addition, Steve has his FINRA Series 6, 7, 26, 24, 66, and 53 licenses. Steve, you've been busy and has qualified several times for the $1 Million Roundtable. Been a member of NAIFA since 1991. He served as local chapter, NAIFA Tampa Bay, in several leadership positions, moving up to president in 2006, 2008. And at NAIFA Florida, Steve served in a variety of leadership positions at the state level. Began his board service in 2012 and went up the chairs where he served as state president in 2016 and 17. Currently, Steve serves as a NAIFA trustee at the national level, and we're delighted you've done that. He's a Lilly graduate. That's our Leadership in Life Institute, graduated in 2008, and he has served as a Lilly moderator as well. In terms of his political involvement, Steve is a congressional council member and contributes regularly to local and state political committee events. He's attended several NAIFA congressional conference meetings in Washington and has attended our NAIFA Florida Legislative Day on the Hill 20 times, which is held here in Tallahassee each year. So I know that was rather lengthy, Steve, but I want to make sure you get some credit for all the work you've done for this association and for the members here at NAIFA Florida. So ladies and gentlemen, Steve Saladino.
Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate the introduction and your support. And for Paula, thank you so much for administering this class. A lot of work goes on behind the scenes for 30 to 60 days prior to the class and then about 30 days after. So Paula, thank you so much for your efforts and your support in making this happen. As you all know, I'm excited to present this class and anytime to NAIFA members. This is just an additional value, benefit, or added value to your membership. Doesn't cost you any additional dollars, just our way of saying thank you for being a member and helping you educate yourself as part of our Advocate, Educate, and Differentiate logo and mantra, if you will. To the guests out there that are not NAIFA members, welcome. I hope you enjoyed today. And if you'd like to have more of this education and development opportunities, you can see Tom at the end. We'd love to have you or share more about our benefits and membership. But today we have a lot of tools and resources to share, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We are going to use the chat feature since this is webinar based or virtual based, and that's how you'll get credit. So you want to make sure you stay connected to your computer and then make sure you use the chat feature to answer the questions. There'll be several throughout the presentation. So the first thing I want to do is talk about the topic, the power of the purse. And I've already got some comments before the class even started. So I think you kind of know the direction that this class is going to go. I just ask everybody to just kind of remember to remain professional, keep an open mind, and understand that, you know, just because you don't agree or you're not doing it doesn't mean you can't learn or have a better perception and maybe a better understanding, which will make you a better person, advisor, community member, and for the men in the audience, maybe a better husband. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. So before I get started, I'd like you to use your chat feature to make sure it's working. And I'd like to ask the question, how many of you currently have a focus in the women's market opportunity or women's marketplace opportunity, where the majority of your business and marketing and running your business is surrounding women in the marketplace? Let's kind of look at this. So interestingly enough, the majority of the men are saying no, which is to be expected in some cases, but I'm surprised that there's a lot of women in here that are saying no as well, but that's not stereotypical or that's not a surprise, and I'll share why. So good. I would say that the majority of the answers are no or not yet, only a couple of yeses, and then we have somes. So maybe you just aren't focused and it just kind of happens as it happens, and that's okay. So keep putting them in there. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So, you know, one of the challenges a lot of financial professionals share when we talk about this is one of the biggest challenges they have is engaging and communicating with women clients and prospects. And, you know, for some of the reasons we're going to be talking about today, why does this happen? But, you know, I think I kind of prefaced it in the introduction is that, you know, we all have different approaches and focuses, and women definitely have different approaches and focuses to life and to finances, and they're different than men. So this should be a very entertaining and informational session. So make sure you take notes, jot down any questions you might have, and Tom will be looking at the chat box. But, you know, what we're going to do is we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the differences, how women make financial decisions to help you understand. We're going to look at some specific strategies to help you, you know, better understand and engage with women in the marketplace if you want to, or better understand when you're meeting with a couple, how to engage with the women. I will tell you one of the biggest mistakes I see, and I've seen it many times, unfortunately, is when I'm working with an advisor or a candidate or a financial professional, whether it's with Principal or any other company, because I do a lot of work with a lot of you out there in the audience, and we're sitting in front of a couple, and you basically focus your attention on the husband and ask the husband the questions, and it's almost as if the wife is not even in the room. How embarrassing. And I think today is going to open your eyes as to some of the reasons why you need to share the love and have a better understanding and perception as you're going through these meetings with couples and women in general. So the power of the purse is going to be the presentation today. So we're pretty excited about that. And just know that everybody that is attending today will get a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, which includes some of the slides and the tools and resources, a one-page document for your future reference, as well as some links to some of the resources and some of the sources that we're going to cite here in the presentation. So don't worry about jotting down websites and things like that. We're going to get this information to you, so please don't worry about that. So as we get started here, today's objectives, and I'm going to kind of move some of this stuff out of the way here. We're going to understand the opportunity in the marketplace when it comes to working with women, you know, candidates, women prospects, women clients, things of that nature. We're going to understand the differences. We're going to connect the 4 personality styles. That's the one-page flyer or document I was referring to earlier that you're going to get a copy of as a good quick reference chart to use after the class is over. And then we're going to talk about how, you know, women engage with the retirement planning. And please just remember that this information is for financial professional use only. We're talking generalities, and we're going to be talking about some statistics and some research, but please understand if you have a specific client situation, we probably want to take that offline to dig into that deeper. So, but we're going to dig in right now. So the first thing is understanding the opportunity. You know, what is the real opportunity is that it's to provide the education for women. We know not just women, but general consumers out there are starving for information. Luckily, we have the internet now. We didn't as much have that when I started in the business, and for many of you as well, but there's a lot of information out there. But yet, when it comes down to making the decisions or understanding the differences of the information, most people, including women, really want to have face-to-face conversation and understand better. But ultimately, the opportunity is, read these statistics here. 53% of women do not have a financial advisor. So if I told you half of a marketplace or target market did not have an advisor yet, that just eliminated half of the competition right there, right? Of those that do have one, 67% of them feel misunderstood by their financial advisor. And what's another word of saying misunderstood? They're just not listening. They're not being heard, things of that kind of nature. So when it comes to, you know, opportunities for selfish reasons, there's an untapped market out there, or more than 50% anyway. And then if you look at it, nearly 9 out of 10 women surveyed said, you know, they want more financial education. They want somebody to provide them this education and awareness. They want to become more empowered. And when they feel more empowered and more educated, they have greater confidence in managing their finances. And I would say along with that, it's going to be the ability to make decisions. And so you have to understand that it's a process. Many of you have heard over the years that people have to know you, like you, and trust you before they'll do business with you. I would tell you that is even more so when working in the women target marketplace, okay? Know you, like you, and trust you before they'll do business. This is, for lack of a better example, this is no different than dating or building a relationship. You know, you got to think about what you would say or do on a first date as maybe compared to a fifth date or fifth month. It happens over time. It's all about relationship building. So we're going to move on there. And Tom, I'm just going to ask you to go ahead and keep your eyes on the chat just in case something comes up for me. So, so this is selfish. This is statistics reasons. There's definitely the opportunity there. Women clients are more important now than ever before. And you'd say, well, how is that? Well, you know, it's not like just yesterday we, you know, voted to give them a chance to vote, and that they're out there working, you know, in addition to being moms, many of them are still handling the household chores as normal, as well as running full-time jobs. I mean, these women out there are powerful, but they want to learn. They want to be more and more empowered. But statistically speaking, wow, $11.2 trillion just in the United States alone, when it comes to exercising decision-making control. When you talk about the purse and what's in the purse, $11.2 trillion is the amount of money that females and women have the ability to make the decisions over. So for those of you that are unfortunately making the mistake of thinking the man is wearing the pants and making the decisions, number one, I would tell you never meet with somebody by themselves. That's called one-legged. And number two, don't assume that that's the case for this situation. When I'll tell you more times than none, the husband, if that's the case, and again, we're not trying to be sexist here, we're just talking statistics and facts here. The husband is going to defer to the wife anyway, or if you're meeting with the husband, even after they said that they handle everything and they wear the pants and they make all the decisions, you know, whenever you ask them to engage and do business and ask them for a check or money, they're gonna have to go home and ask mom anyway. So just understand that. So, but over $5.1 trillion is managed solely by females, just their own money that they have total control over, as compared to that 11.2 total amount. And then as we look at this, what other opportunities? I would say, in addition to women in general, when you think about women-owned businesses, and I know, I'm not sure, I'd love to see in the chat box here, how many of you work in the business markets and not just the individual market. This would be double dipping here. There's twice as much opportunity. How many of you are working with small to medium-sized business owners? Jot that down in the chat box, yes or no? Interesting, Tom. We have a lot more people working in the business market than in the women's market. But I wonder if those that are working with women would maybe think about combining the two if they haven't thought of that. But that may be, you know, some opportunities from additional classes in the future with regards to the business market. But women-owned firms account for 39% of all privately held firms. More than 11.6 million firms are owned by women. This is, and depending on which sources you look at, and there's some sources that are cited down below, and again, we're going to give you the links to these afterwards. It's either a first or a close second place between which is growing the fastest, whether it's women-owned businesses or Hispanic-owned businesses. But again, some really selfish or some statistics here that you just can't overlook. So something I'd really like you to take a look at, if you will, so you learn as we go along. Why focus on women? Well, we talked about the statistics earlier, but they have money. So, I remember Ed Barber from MetLife when I started in the business back in 1990 out of the military. He says, you have to be able to see the people. You have to be able to identify a need. They have to be able to pass an exam, if you're talking about insurance, and then see, need, pay, and then they see, need, pay, and pass. So those four things. So these people, the women market, they have money. So they have money to invest in solutions that you may present or risk management products you may offer to help them. We've already identified majority have managed the family finances. They may inherit wealth twice. And what they're talking about here is many of the women you might do business with, if they're married, statistically speaking, with life expectancy the way it is, men are going to die before us, or statistically speaking, they do. And so they would be inheriting IRAs or 401ks or any of the wealth that's left behind by their spouse as a survivor, and then, or maybe their parents as well. So you think about wealth in two different situations. So two different planning opportunities there are what we call triggers that you'd want to keep your eyes open for. They want financial guidance. And so, one of the things that I think shocks most people when they ask me, and many of you, what's your ideal client? And I think most people are predispositioned based on what they see on TV about, well, I'm only talking to people that have $250,000, investable assets, or make $150,000 or more a year, and blah, 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 blah. And in fact, for most of us that are really doing this because we love what we want to do and we want to help people, I want to work with people who are coachable, people who want help, people who want a guide and value the advice of an advisor and want the help of a navigator or a consultant. So this women's market and this opportunity has definitely demonstrated that they want financial guidance. They admit more easily than men that they don't understand it all, and they want to know more. And I'll tell you, they're referral machines. That, and many of you on the phone or on the line now can tell you, women get together and they will say, hey, here's a good movie, here's a good book, here's a great place to shop, here's it. I mean, they have an unbelievable network, a very trusted and valuable network. And so I will tell you that this is a double-edged sword, in that, if you do a really good job, you don't even have to ask for referrals. They would be advocates for you. And I believe advocates is different than what they mentioned here as far as being referrals. Advocates meaning they're going to talk on your behalf. They're going to go out and seek and gain introductions for you and be an ambassador for you. You won't even have to ask. But I'll tell you what, if you make a mistake, if you treat them wrong, that bad publicity, that will happen automatically and quicker and worse than you've ever thought of in your life. So be careful, be very, very careful. And then as we saw before, ultimately 53% opportunity here. No one really owns the women's market. As you saw there in the introductory chat question, the majority of people said no on this. And we have got, I don't know, right now we've got roughly 67 people. So 2/3 or so of the people that registered are on the line. And the majority of you said, hey, I'm not in the women's market. So, and that doesn't mean that you want to just, stop doing what you're doing. I think that would be a mistake. You want to continue to do the kind of work you're doing now, but this, I'm hoping, is going to be compelling statistics and information about this opportunity to say, hey, what would it look like if I added this leg to my stool of marketing, because it's always more stable to have 3 legs on that stool to sit on rather than just one. Maybe I'd think about introducing some of these opportunities with women or women-owned businesses into my marketing plan for the future to see how that would go. And for many of you, it may be easier. I didn't mention at the beginning that I do focus my practice on women in general. My practice right now has over 67% of women in there, and that's not all because of the initial focus. It's just over the years, this is what's happened. And I do have women in my practice as well, because some of the men, are married to the women. but about 67 or so percent at this point. So we're going to move along. So the next area is understanding the differences. Now, this is where it gets a little technical, and I'm going to use some resources here to draw upon because it's a lot of material. So I'd ask for your patience here. The differences, get deep here. We're talking about women, we're talking about female. But when we start digging into this, there are some major differences. Women are more verbal. If you think about your staff, if you think about your team, if you think about your relationship, and this is, this is not all cases, this is just statistically speaking, and we're going to get more scientific here in a moment, women are more verbal than men. And I don't know if that is, speaking on behalf of the men, I don't know if that's a pride or ego thing. I don't know if that's because we were raised to, suck it up and be a man and quit crying and don't show our emotions. All those things that could be learned behavior, who knows? That's a whole nother class, and we won't be able to give CE on that. But they're definitely more verbal. They can express themselves and articulate themselves better. And so that is a major difference of their characteristic. They value relationships. I mean, it is all, as I mentioned before, about building the relationship, and it's over time. You'll have to gauge the pace of the female or woman client or prospect that you're working with. How fast or slow? What's their timeline? How do they make decisions? And again, we're going to go into that quick reference sheet here in a little bit. But it's about the relationship. Is there trust? Am I learning? Are they listening? Do they have my best interest at heart and in mind? Are they communicating with me? Are they getting back to me in a timely manner? Are they responsive? Are they respectful? All these things really matter in this situation. They have better long-term memories. Now, I'll agree with that, but I'm only going to speak for myself. I don't know about the other men on the phone here, on the line here, but well, from a relationship standpoint, if you can think about a fight you had or something you said that you probably don't want your wife to remember, they're definitely going to remember, but they have really good, better long-term memories. And this is one of the case in points where maybe a woman advisor or financial professional would want to work with women, because in most cases, you're just so much alike. And there's a lot of instant bonding because of the characteristics resemble each other. So that's something to remember. So they are long-term planners. Most of them are not just, get it done right now or, one and done. This is, again, goes back to relationship. This, they're visionary. They have a plan. There's steps. There's priorities. And so, again, generalization here, but, as you're going through and talking with women, these are the things you'd want to consider. Even if you were only thinking about these, 5 or 6 bullet points, could make the difference in how your relationship goes. How fast it goes, how well it goes, and things of this nature. So just some best practices, if you will. And they're multitaskers. Now, I know there's a whole science on multitaskers. We're not going to get into that today to know whether or not this is a proven fact or not, or whether it's a myth. There's a lot to be said about multitasking, and that it's still a distraction and you're not giving 100% in any one area. I think that's evidenced by the fact that people don't know how to drive when they're talking on their phones or texting while they're driving or eating while they're driving or putting their makeup on while they're driving or playing with their dog while they're driving or whatever they're doing other than driving. So that's scary, but they're better than we are. I think the men in the room, might agree. And I know myself, if I'm focused on something, my wife could be talking and I may or may hear her literally seconds later or minutes later, or she might say, "Are you listening to me?" And actually, no, I wasn't. I was focused on one thing, where I think women can do 6 or 8 things at one time. So those are just a couple of them. So when it comes to differences and some of the dynamics, we're not going to get into too much of the science, but you've heard about the right brain, the left brain, and how we process information. But there's also going to be some differences and approaches to investing as well. I don't know if you can see that with my screen like that, between the male and the female. So predominantly, the men are going to be more risk takers and the females are going to be more risk cautious. Again, this goes back to that relationship building. This goes back to that education and understanding. This goes back to the long-term planning aspect of it. I'm hoping you see how this is all knitted together, comes together all at one time here. Men are going to move money around more frequently. We're going to share some statistics with that here in a few minutes. And women are going to be more of the, let's just stay the course, the concept, the strategy, the long-term plan. Once they understand it, once they agree upon it, they're probably not going to make as many changes. And when it comes to investing money, depending on what kind of an investment you're talking about, and it will be general because not everybody is licensed the same way on the line here, is that, you could incur some surrender penalties or some, some charges, some ticket charges, some buy and sell charges, and things like that. So you got to think about the differences here as well. And I know when you're doing your risk tolerance and you're trying to determine what's in the best interest of the client, you're thinking about not just the risk tolerance, but you're thinking about the time horizon as well. So that would be appropriate in your questioning as well. Men in general are more overconfident. Women in general lack confidence. And, it's not just in the investing, but that's what we're talking about here. Sometimes it's in business with glass ceilings and things of this nature, but it's again because of the awareness and the education and the understanding. Once they learn more, they will be more confident. But you got to remember now, although a lot has changed since, Ozzie and Harriet days, there's still many people out there where the male is doing, all of the bill paying, doing all the checking, doing all the budgeting, doing all the finances, and the women are just depositing their check into hopefully a joint account, but maybe even just a household or the male's account, and who knows, but not as involved. And so they lack the confidence because they don't have the practice and they've not had to be assigned with that task. And this is where we find issues come up when somebody passes, as we'll share here in a little bit. The men are looking for immediate gains. I get bored easy. I want to have it happen today. I'm investing the male client's money today, and they're calling tomorrow saying, I looked online and I don't see my account moving. In fact, I lost some money. It could be a half a decimal point. It doesn't matter. They want immediate gains. Where again, this goes back to the woman saying, hey, we've got a long-term plan here. I'm going to stay the course. I'm patient. I want to learn as we go along. And, I'm not doing this to have immediate results. This is for a long-term purpose, so I understand. Again, this is, I guess, a little bit of a duplication. Men in general in investing are more results-oriented, where women are definitely more relationship and plan-oriented. If you are a financial planner, certified financial planner, if you're doing holistic financial planning, which anybody on this line can do without a license, anybody on this line can do holistic financial planning without having a designation or without holding themselves out to be. This is going to fit more into a female in the women marketplace. This is the kind of relationship they want. If you are licensed properly to charge a fee, I have had more women pay for a fee than men because they value all the things that you're giving them. Where a male just sees I'm spending money and I just really want to make money. So the relationship for a financial planner is better with the women marketplace, just in general, because of these differences in characteristics and approaches. So here's the study. When you go back to time in the market and things like that, the financial study that we had is that the average man in the study underperformed the average woman by 1.4% per year. Now that's performance of the investment. So if somebody's making 10% average, it's 1.4% less for a male. We're still, a single male lagged a single female by more. So by 2.3%. And over time, since it's every year they're talking about, it's a compounded drag on performance. And so this is no difference. I mean, you look at this 2.3%, that's like somebody having twice as much fees in their account. And so this is an opportunity because, if you were out there looking at clients' investment statements and you, what I call take them hostage, you take their investment statement, you do a hypothetical analysis. Here's some areas where you can look at to see how much activity has happened. Is there frequent trading in the account? Does it appear to be churning? Does it appear to have or lack a sense of direction or strategy? This is a way you can win business over every day. And I'm not a proponent of replacing business, but we're talking about investments here. And if the client's not getting, the value or the performance, then we've got some issues, and that might be an opportunity. So I'm going to stop there for a second to see if we have any questions coming in while I grab a quick drink of water.
Steve, we don't have any yet. Everybody seems to be just enjoying your presentation, it looks like, but no questions or real comments yet.
Okay.
Matt
Let's just have.
Maxine
Okay.
says she completely agrees with what you're saying. So there you
Great, great.
go.
Thank you. And if I could have everybody just take a minute and turn your cameras on, show your faces to Tom and Paula, let them know you're still alive, awake, and at your computer, that would be great. And then we're going to move on. So how do we connect? Which I think is important. So we've heard all this. We see the opportunity. Some of you agree and see, hey, I would like to learn more about the opportunity. How do I connect with women? So I think this is an important part of the presentation, because even though it's a continuing education class, when it helps you to connect what you've learned with people that you can make a difference with, I think that's powerful. And so I applaud Principal and their legal department for putting this together and allowing us to share it with NAIFA and our guest today. So we have to understand the 4 types of female investors. And so this is laid out for you here. And again, you don't need to take notes because we're going to give you a quick reference chart, but they're essentially traditional investors, power broker, relationship, and deliberate. And some of those you can kind of look at or see the symbol and kind of say, hey, I probably can guess, what's going on here and pretty much what that means. But let's just kind of go through these one by one. And I was going to say here before I go further, Holly Buchanan is the author of a book titled Selling Financial Services to Women, and we're going to get you this information. Interestingly, in here, she's the one who identifies these 4 types of female investors. And then from like, if you think about personality tests and things like that you've taken, and especially if you were in Lilly, you can understand this. It's important not only for you to know your style, but the person you're talking to so you can accommodate. And in a sense, we're being a chameleon, if you will, which is not a bad thing. It's just trying to help understand somebody and work more at the way that they like to be worked with. But understanding and knowing which 4 types your female clients or prospects more closely align with can help you connect and communicate more effectively. So that's what this is talking about here. We're going to talk about these here a little bit more. And then again, you'll get some of this that goes into detail as we get into this, give it to you after class here. So here's the first one, the traditional investing woman. The characteristics is she could be married or a widow, but from the traditional standpoint, these are the ones that, if you're working with maybe pre-retired or retireds, they would probably fall into this traditional characteristic standpoint. They let their husbands make all the decisions. And that's not good or bad. It's just what's been agreed upon. They could be overpowered by the spouse. They could be submissive to the spouse. They could, maybe not have the ability based on understanding or education. They may not even have the desire. Who knows what the decision are, but the traditional woman advisor or investor, she's taking a back seat. The husband's taking care of everything. Now, that doesn't mean, and you see her deep down inside, she may not like it, but she definitely knows that she needs to better understand. So I would encourage you, and when I'm in front of potential clients and I'm talking about the financial planning process, part of my minimum expectation is they have to be coachable and they have to be engaged, but they both have to be. And I want them both to be involved in every meeting. And I want to hear from both of them, because the questions I ask, not the data-driven questions, but the touchy-feely emotional questions, I want to know what they both think. And their answers could be different, and that's okay. You want to know that. You're going to ask the man if he's worried about dying early. He's going to say no because he's Superman. The woman is going to say, you know what, that does concern me, and here's the level of concern I have. Or it's, do you fear living too long? No, the man's going to say, no, if I think I'm going to live too long, or if I'm getting sick or ill, I'm just going to jump out of my fishing boat. And it's just a crazy difference of conversations where the woman says, yeah, I don't want to be a burden on my family. There's dignity and pride there. So definitely knowing this, they want to better understand what's going on with the money and how it works. Why? Because they know in most cases they're going to outlive the spouse and they don't want to be left with things that they don't understand. So what to expect here? They're the least knowledgeable. They're probably going to be afraid to ask questions. You'll see this in your dialogue during your discovery or your, introductory or complimentary consultation, how they're working together or not working together, who's dominating the conversation, whether somebody seems submissive or afraid to speak, and you want to see whether or not you're going to be able to open that up and whether you want to move forward with that. Again, she may just say, he makes all the decisions for me. I'm just here to sign. But they definitely have, again, more cautious and probably a lower risk tolerance in some cases. Now, remember, this traditional probably pertains to more of the pre-retired or retired. It's probably thinking of a more senior aspect, which would be in line with that low risk tolerance. It doesn't mean all traditional women are that way. And if you're in a marriage like my wife, where she wants me to handle the majority of it, she doesn't have a low risk tolerance, but she just doesn't want to or care to know everything. She's got her own areas that she spends a lot of time on, where I really don't want to know or spend the time on that because she's better at it. So these are some of the expectations. Here's some of the questions you want to ask. And it's going to be directed to the woman in the conversation, in addition to the other questions you ask. What keeps them up at night? You know, what do you trust? What do you trust to give your financial advice? You know, in other words, how do they take trust? How do they give trust? How do they work and communicate with? Who are they working with right now that they give their personal information to is more important there. What are some of the things that they do not want to have happen? You know, we talk about decisions they made in the past. I always ask about the most important personal and professional or financial decision they make in the past, and the worst. This is going to kind of tell you. And then more about the relationship with the financial professional advisor. You know, what are they looking for? Their types of communications, their preferences, and things like that. Those are important things you'd want to ask in this conversation. So I'm going to ask you a question here. So what's the most important financial outcome you'd like to pursue, and what are your expectations of me as we work together towards that goal? So if I'm asking a traditional investor that question, what do you think their answer is going to be? You can put it in the chat box. And nobody wants to answer there.
There we go.
Yeah.
Not run out of money, retirement, financial security.
Yeah. Again, it's going to be that internal kind of things: comfort, security, legacy, concern. Yeah, not running out of money, not having to worry. You see all the words, very good. Yeah, that's exactly what this is. And you know, it's really somebody, they just want somebody to say, hey, you're going to be okay. You know, you don't have to worry. We've got a plan. You know, we've got some challenges. We're going to come over. Here's the direction we're going to go. We're going to be in this together. And so they just want you to, you know, be able to reassure them that, you know, it's okay to not know and understand. You're going to learn over time, and they can be as involved or uninvolved as they want to be. So those are the real answers there. Before I go on, some of the things to think about is a lot of these traditional investors, they're comfortable with CDs. They're a little bit more old-fashioned and conservative investing. They believe in Social Security and Medicare. Just understand that. And you know, they may rely on family members for advice. So be careful, you know, how you handle the kind of advice they're getting, because it may be somebody that is involved in their decision-making sphere of influence. So be careful with that. So we're going to move on to the power broker. We're going to have to speed it up a little. We got a little bit of a late start, and I want everybody to get this information. So just like it sounds, power broker. This investor, this woman investor, I mean, it's almost exactly like it sounds here. This investor is going to be a type A type personality. They're likely to be successful in their own, you know, finances already, may even be a business owner. They like to be in control, but they probably have so many other things going on. They probably, you know, are looking for maybe a second opinion or a partner, if you will, in kind of making these decisions to manage their investments. So they're looking for the partner. Those would be some important things. So what do you expect from some of this as we go on here? They have more knowledge than your traditional. They're going to ask you questions, and they're going to be direct questions, okay? They're going to tell you they make their own decisions. Now, that does not mean without wanting, you know, education or empowerment or, you know, being able to understand options. They're not going to have to come, but they're going to make their decisions themselves. They're not going to rely on a family member. They're not going to rely on a spouse. Many times you'll go into a relationship where they're investing separately. They have their own separate bank accounts. And it's not normally or not necessarily because they had maybe a marriage before or any other issues. It could just be that's the way they came into the marriage or the way they do business. Most of them are, if they're a power broker, are going to be more risk tolerant. I would say moderate to anything above that. They're not going to be that conservative because they've actively been involved themselves in the past. So this is kind of that they already kind of know, so you're kind of testing the water. So what are your opinion? What's your opinion on this as you're asking questions or talking about certain options? What are your goals? How will we measure success? So you want to make sure it's still a partnership. Remember, they can do it on their own. They just maybe not have the time. Is there anything specifically they're looking for? How have they already started to invest, and where did the money come from? And then you want to kind of talk about, what went well and what hasn't gone well. They'll tell you, I decided to invest in this and I didn't do enough research, or my brother told me this and it didn't work, or, I found something online or heard something at the gym, whatever it might be, they'll tell you exactly what worked and what didn't work. So you just want to be very direct with these conversations. And in this question, investor in the women marketplace, if I ask a question of that person, what's the most important financial outcome you'd like to pursue, and what are your expectations of me as we work toward that goal? What do you think their likely answer would be? And these are good questions. Again, you're going to have these to think about, because if you ask the question and then shut up, they're going to tell you. And that's the secret. That's the secret sauce. If you ask the right questions and listen, they're going to tell you exactly what your job is. They're going to tell you exactly how they're going to judge you, rate you, measure your success. They're going to tell you exactly what steps and in which order. They're going to tell you how fast or slow, all those types of things. Yep. Okay, good. Yeah, so I want to be in control. So again, remember, they still want to be in control, but I want you to do the legwork for me. I want you to do the due diligence. I want you to prepare options, and I want you to present them to me and tell me the pros and cons of each. And I want to know why you worked hard to come up with these options. I want you to understand that my money is important to me, and I worked very hard to get it. So it's a little bit of a control and the ego thing, a little bit. But they also want your help, and they want a plan, and they want the plan to have results. Good answers there. Thank you. And again, so this is generic, and I'm not saying that everybody's going to ask all those, but just some best practices. This relationship, the next one is going to be the relationship type of a woman investor. They are very involved with their family. They may appear to be under-organized or unorganized, if you will. They need some help. They need a plan and some guidance, and they'd like to put a plan in place. So you can see these people have all good intentions, but they've been more relationship people, maybe taking care of other people and not taking care of themselves. And you may or may not be surprised to know that, of the 30-something% other clients that I have, they're financial professionals. It's funny to know that, it's the old, adage of the cobbler's kids or the barber's kids. Many of you on this line, and I'm not going to ask you to admit it in the chat box, but many of you on the line here are not practicing what you're preaching. You're not organized. You don't have a plan. You're not where you want to be. You've been procrastinating. You're not even following your own advice. So, but many of you have decided, that maybe you're a little bit more like one of these women investor, and that, you want to be in control or pretend like you're in control, but you really need help. And that's where somebody like me comes into play. So I got to thank NAIFA for that, because if it was not for NAIFA, I would not have the ability to work with other financial professionals in my own practice. So that's a benefit in itself.
And
so
Joe DeMarco, Steve, sorry to interrupt.
Yep.
He says, what would you do and why? I assume it's a question for the prospects.
Yep. It was part of the answers to the other question we had. Yep. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. And so what to expect is that, again, they're somewhat knowledgeable. They're going to ask some questions. They want you to make decisions with them. They have some risk tolerance. Not a whole lot difference, not as controlling, though, as what you saw before. Here's some questions you might want to ask. Similar. So you can see those are a little bit similar, so I'm not gonna repeat those. And the relationship investor, when you ask the question, they want the relationship. They want to know the person they're working with understands them and what's important to them. They need guidance to make sure they don't make the mistakes that they were making before because they weren't paying attention, because they've been taking care of everybody else but themselves. If they're unhappy with the relationship, they're just going to probably just quietly end it and never share with you why. So you have these are relationships and feeling based, so you got to be careful what you say and do. And I'm not really sure what all that yellow stuff is on this slide. I just noticed it for a couple of times here. My apologies. I don't know if that's a scar on here or visual, but anyway. And then the last one is the deliberate woman investor. This is, I'm very organized and thorough. They're skeptical because you got to realize they've been doing it on their own, and, they're going to challenge, yeah, that's a good point, Joe. Yep. Nothing ceases me more to know that when you go to a dealership and buy a vehicle, and if you're there late at night or on a Sunday and they've held your keys hostage, you end up buying a car. It's funny that when you drive off the lot with your car, let's say you're in a Lincoln, you're driving off the lot. It's funny that the salesperson or the manager drives off the lot with a Toyota. I've never understood that, but anyway, you're right. They're going to have a lot of questions. They're going to be skeptical. You're going to earn your money with this person. This person is going to challenge you to say, why do I need you? I've been doing this all on my own. Okay. And that's okay, but you have to decide by knowing these, is this somebody you even want to engage with? You might know after the initial complimentary consultation in 20, 30 minutes, I don't even think there's a basis. It looks like you're doing a good job, or, some of the prerequisites I have are people that, want a second opinion or want a partner, or want somebody co-manage, or are open to direction and guidance, or want to be further educated, want to develop in their knowledge, all those things. So, but you got to remember, this also may come from a place of fear. They could have been a traditional person. They could have been a widow. And then now they've been more deliberate. They feel like they've been doing okay on their own, but they don't want to go backwards to any of the other characteristics. So that's going to be important that they're sharing that with you. You're probably not going to get discretion on any of these accounts. If you have the ability to have discretionary trading authority, if you're a financial advisor and you're investing in something that's in the market, they're going to want you to call before you make decisions. So chances are the client will never extend or grant discretion to you. That's just not their style. They've been doing it on their own. And so if you wanted to recommend something, you got to run it by them, and it's probably going to be their idea when they say yes. So just understand that. Just being thorough in your questions and things of that nature. And I don't see any algorithms help. Yep. Good point, Lee. Good question there. Yep.
Did you see Joe's question, Steve?
Yeah. He's just kind of saying, and it's funny because you'll have, good point, Joe. You have a lot of clients who'll say, well, how do you feel about this? Or are you investing in this? Or what do you invest in? Or what do you think? I know that when I started in the business, when we used to use track books before compliance told us we couldn't have guides, one of the things I always included in that was a copy of my life insurance policy and my income protection policy and my investments, my investment statements, because I wanted them to see that I was putting my money where my mouth is, and that I believed in this well enough that I purchased it for myself and my family as well. So those are great points. Thank you, Joe. And then engaging with each type. Again, we're talking about investing, but it could also be retirement planning with each of these investor types. So, you just have to remember, with each of these types, there's going to be a different relationship style, different type of patience, different type of communication, different type of understanding. And so these guides, I think, are going to help you out. You don't have to memorize them now or take pictures of them. As I mentioned, we're going to get this to you, but how much information do they want? How fast are they going to want it? How do they want it? There's, that just like a normal prospect who's going to be their preferences, the way they like to learn, the way they like to communicate. These are just good, quick reference, things here that are going to show you the differences. So I would just ask a second, and I'm going to stop here and ask you in the chat box, how many of you can, after the last 20 or 30 minutes here, how many of you can kind of put your finger on the fact that, this makes sense based on some of the clients you visited with, and whether you're a male or female online here, and why the relationship went well and how you connected, or how maybe it didn't go well and how something like this would maybe help you in the future, maybe assimilate better to their style, because it's all about the client, right? Unless you decide, hey, I just can't work with this person, and then you just have to stand your ground. I'd ask you to answer that. Yeah, I think you can understand. Yep. So that was kind of a rhetorical question, right? Gotcha. Very good, very good. It's all about the relationship. It always has. Well, that and money, right? It's always about the money, especially when they say it's not about the money. So in summary, thank you, everybody. Good stuff. Good participation there. What do women want? Well, if the truth is, if you're a man on the line, we still don't know. And this class didn't help that either. But from an investor standpoint, we know that there's an opportunity. And, we have to understand that everybody is different, not just women, everybody is different. And some of these same characteristic styles could be very similar to male clients as well. We already know the difference between individuals and businesses are different. You're going to have more time and be able to relax and take your time in disseminating information to an individual client. But when it comes to a business owner, in most cases, it's like you're walking around, you got 3 to 5 minutes and you better get it off and it better be good. And you're walking while they're taking calls and moving around. So you already know that there's differences in all types of clients. So this is not just focused to women. This just happens to be the focus of this class today. They want to be included. They want to be heard. They want to be educated and feel confident and empowered. They want a personalized plan. They are not cookie cutter concept. They want this to be all about them and that you designed it for their specific goals, needs, and objectives. And ultimately, they want a long-term relationship. And because of that, if you're able to assimilate these characteristic styles in your practice and gain female clients, I will tell you that I've only had in 31 years, 2 people fire me, if you would call firing, and ultimately without calls, but sometimes you don't know why. And only one of them was a female. She lived in a different state and she was a referral. So, but you're going to have great persistency with this, and I was a little vulnerable there to share that with you, but the truth is we're going to lose people from time to time, but this is a very sticky, persistent book of business here because they value the long-term relationship with you as well. So, as long as you're doing what you need to do, you're going to be able to keep these clients as well. So we are going to provide you at the end of the class with, just the slides so it will improve your one-on-one conversations. You're going to be able to get, some information and some links to learn more about how to use this information in small group presentations or large group presentations. You'll have that one-page quick reference guide that's going to have the different styles and characteristics and some of the things you'd want to ask or say and some of the styles and the way you'd want to communicate and disseminate information. That's going to be really good. These are some of the tools and resources that we're going to provide to you for attending today's workshop. So with that being said, I'm going to just stop and then see if you have any questions or thoughts as we land the plane here.
This is Paula Keys. I just want to let everyone know I did just put the sign-in sheet in the chat box function. If you're able to download it, great. If not, don't worry. Sometime this afternoon, I am going to send all the documents to you, the PowerPoint presentation, as well as this sign-in sheet. So be looking for it someday today. If you don't get it, look in your spam folder or contact me and I'll send it to you individually. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would share with you also, and thank you, Paula, that we will be submitting your continuing education request to the state in Tallahassee very, very quickly. One of the things we were doing previously that we did not realize we did not have to do was piecemeal this. So Paula is assembling a roster, if you will, that's going to help out. But I also want you to know, because of COVID and some of the things that have happened, that the state is behind, and people are calling in sick. They're working with their kids. They've got medical issues, and so I would just ask for your patience. If after 10 days or 2 weeks you're not seeing credit on your state website in your portal, just let us know. We'll double check for you, but I assure you, they get done and you're going to get credit. And if you don't see it, we'll make sure it happens for you. But Tom, unless there's any other questions, I don't see any. I would like to thank everybody for attending. For those of you that are NAIFA members, I want to thank you for your membership and for paying your dues and for your engagement in this professional association. For those of you that are guests, I would love an opportunity to chat with you more about why you should be a member and the many benefits of membership that outweigh the dues that we pay, and how it's changed my life and my practice in my 31 years. So Tom, I'll turn it back over to you.
Great. Thank you, Steve. And we're getting lots of thank yous to you on the chat feature, Steve. So I know everyone appreciated it. And Travis's great presentation, lots of info in 60 minutes. So we're very thrilled. We're very excited about the fact that you got a lot out of it, and found it to be extremely valuable. That's what we're here for. That's what NAIFA is all about. This is a little bit of the benefit value added that we provide here at NAIFA Florida and at our national level in NAIFA. And so we're thrilled to do this for you. And Steve, again, our thanks for taking time to do that. Let me piggyback on something that Steve said a moment ago. It does take a few days to get the roster for CE filed with the Department of Financial Services. They give us a window, but we're going to try and speed that up a little bit, as Steve mentioned. But then once the department receives the roster for this class, they have up to 2 or 3 weeks to click that button and approve it. So it may not actually show up in your system. Don't worry, you get credit for the CE class during the month in which you took the class. It could be August 15th or 20th until it shows up in the system, your portal with the department. But remember, you get credit for the month in which you actually took the class. That seems to be a little bit of a misunderstanding among some of our members, and we get calls about that periodically. So no worries. But let me say this, if you have issues, if there's a problem, let us know, let Paula know. You can reach me by my email address going to NAIFA Florida, NAIFA-Florida.org, NAIFA-Florida.org, and look up to contact me if you don't have my email address. But or call the office. We'll get you squared and set up that way as well. Paula, do you have anything else at this point? They just have to fill out the form you posted in the chat, correct?
I do not have anything else. It is in the chat. If you can't get it, then don't worry. I'm emailing it to everyone later this afternoon as soon as possible. If you don't get it by day's end, please email me, and I will send it to you individually. Thank you.
Isn't she amazing, Steve? Isn't that awesome, you know?
Where the heck is it in the chat?
All right. But yes, that's very good. So if you've got the form in the chat feature that Paula just posted a moment ago, it's in there. You may have to scroll up. Paula, would you mind posting it again? It seems like all the thanks Steve messages kind of covered it up a little bit. You may have to scroll up to find it. Matter of fact, I'm trying to find it here. There it is. Now let's see. All right. So Paul, if you don't mind posting it one more time to the chat feature, just paste it in there. There it is. Okay. There it is from Paula Keys. It says 07-29-21 CE class sign in. That's a Word document. All you have to do is click that Word document. It'll open up, print it, and you're good to go. And there's Steve's information. He posted that as well, his phone number and his email address. And look for some more classes from Steve. As a matter of fact, before we started this class, we were chatting for a few moments. And we're going to try and get a few more classes scheduled with Steve this fall. So you'll have some more opportunities to pick up some more continuing education from NAIFA Florida. We're delighted to do that for you. So
if there's any particular topics or segments of the market that you'd like to learn more about, let me know. We have a pretty robust library, and then we have some partners that extend those to us as well. We'll be more than happy to do that.
Very good. Very good. There you go. Cafeteria style.